Hello everyone, this is OJ. I apologize for not being able to upload in a while. I've been very busy adjusting myself to school, internships at the time, so it's very difficult for me to find the time to upload videos. But now that I've settled in, I thought now would be the perfect time to make this series that I always wanted to do. I believe I left off with the UFC Casuals Guide for heavyweight, but I cannot stand watching heavyweight fights anymore outside of the top 5, and I am sick of John Jones holding the heavyweight belt hostage instead of fighting Tom Aspinall. Over the next few weeks, I have decided to cover a division that is more exciting, but at the same time, even more infuriating to watch. With that being said, I introduce to you the lore of the UFC light heavyweight division. Now, when you hear the phrase top contender in the UFC, you will think about an elite martial artist who have honed their body, mind, and spirit to the point where nobody can come close to them in terms of strength, technique, and grit. I'm here to tell you that most top tier light heavyweights are not elite martial artists. If I were to equate what predicting the outcome of a light heavyweight bout feels like most of the time, it's as if I'm going all in on black at the Russian roulette table. Half the time, the results don't make sense, and when the results do make sense, it's because the other fighter is probably stupid. Now, sure, some of you may think this is easy for me to say, considering I've never stepped foot in the UFC octagon before, but by the end of this video, I hope I shed some light as to how awful the UFC light heavyweight division truly is to watch. A really good and recent example of this would be Vitor Petrino versus the greatest of all time on paper, Anthony Smith. To understand why I chose this example, I will provide you the following context. Anthony Smith often compares himself with Michael Jordan of the division, despite never winning a title, despite never beating anyone elite in the division, and he does this weird thing where he makes makeshift beef with a lot of fighters.
Maybe I'm like on some Michael Jordan shit where I'm just making shit up in my head and making a mountain out of a molehill just because that's what I need to do. I don't know.
Anthony Smith has lost to nearly everyone else in the top 10, and that's not exactly Michael Jordan-esque. On the other hand, we had Petrino, who looked like the next hype train of the light heavyweight division. He was an 11-0 undefeated prospect with freakish athleticism with noticeable improvements in technique after every fight. Now, the fight ended with Smith choking Petrino out, and I put money on Petrino at the time. Was I coping really hard as I watched Smith lock in that guillotine choke? Yes. But you have to understand, it is the way that Petrino let himself get locked in that guillotine that had me fuming throughout the whole night. Petrino, in this position, picked Smith up before slamming him down, and as a result, Petrino's neck extended far enough for Smith to finish the guillotine even faster. I don't know what possessed Petrino to slam himself further into the guillotine choke, nor do I know why Petrino even shot a double leg with his head outside for Smith to reach for the neck in the first place. There were so many questions in this one fight I asked myself, but at the end of the day, I concluded that top 10 to 15 level light heavyweights are trash at fighting. This is not a one-time occurrence, nor is something like this exclusive to fighters around the top 10 to unranked level of light heavyweight. If anything, we see something like this time and time again. Another example would be Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill. I am sure a lot of people who aren't even MMA fans have seen this photo after Pereira knocked out Hill at UFC 300. Just to cover what was going on throughout the buildup of this fight, Hill made a point to not shoot a single takedown against Pereira in order to prove that he's the better striker than one of the greatest kickboxers ever.
I'm making a very assertive point, and and mark my words when I say this. There will be no. I do not plan on taking him down. I do not plan on wrestling him. I plan on going in there in where y'all think he's just this otherworldly guy because he did kickboxing and I didn't do kickboxing. You know, this is a completely different sport. Kickboxing is kickboxing. MMA is MMA. I've been doing MMA for years. I've been bred in MMA. And whenever I do fight him, standing, I will knock him out. And when I do, I'm going to rub it in every single one of y'all face.
Yes, in Hill's words, this sport is called MMA, mixed martial arts. In a sport called MMA, you can hit people with your hands and legs, but you can also grab your opponent and pile drive them onto the floor or choke your opponent out. At what point do people need to realize that Pereira is coming from a background where all he does is punch, kick, and knee opponents in the face or body? Even if you wholeheartedly believe that you are better than Pereira at kickboxing, I don't understand why most of Pereira's opponents choose to challenge Pereira where Pereira is best at when there are other options in MMA. Long story short, Hill chose to only kickbox with Pereira and got slept in the first round as a result. I don't believe Hill was thinking exactly how he was going to beat Pereira by only using kickboxing, because Pereira timed Hill with a signature left hook after Hill threw a punch. And even throughout the fight, Hill spent the entirety just trading kicks with Pereira instead of setting up boxing combinations. There was no setup, no feint, he just threw kicks back every time Pereira threw a calf kick. My point is, if you follow me throughout this whole series, you will notice just how frequently stuff like this happens, even near the highest level of light heavyweight. Fair enough, the top 5 and maybe some fighters outside the top 5 area are very capable. But outside of a few, not really. At least compared to every other weight class other than heavyweight. That is where I'm going to stop for today. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will do my best to upload more consistently from now on. Until then, goodbye.